Before we start this video here today, there's a couple of disclaimers that I want to get out of the way. Firstly, this will be one of the last videos for 2025 in general regarding this channel because yes, next year, well, again, I'm going to be doing another rebrand. And it's not just a background change either. All the details will come out over the next few weeks. You'll just have to wait and see what's going to come around. And second of all, as you've seen at the title of this video, this is my top 36 from this year's Eurovision Song Contest. There's probably no huge surprises when it comes to the reasons as to why I've said top 36 instead of top 37, considering one particular country, i.e. Israel, let's just say are not exactly on my nice list now. I've already talked about Israel beforehand in other live streams and other videos, which I've just sort of splurred out at, the heat of the moment, so if you want to go check those out, then just check out my channel, of course. But if I was going to mark Israel in terms of its song alone, then I probably would have put it about in mid-table, maybe 12th to 13th or something. But with all of that out of the way, it is now time to finally dive into my particular personal rankings from this year's Eurovision Song Contest. And without any further ado, for one of the final times this season, roll those titles. Afternoon evening everybody, my name is Jamie Jew and welcome back to a brand new video, and I'm just a humble normal Eurovision fan that just likes to cover my opinions and analysis in regards to Eurovision songs for any particularly given year. I covered all 37 participating countries in this year's competition, although that being said, if one particular country is going to be participating next year, it's probably going to be at least one less. But regardless, if you follow me on Instagram, I cover the news of all things Eurovision, and I also do impromptu videos just splurting out the latest things that I think are relevant towards the Eurovision community, or indeed just spouting out nonsense half the time. So if you want to hear my opinions, or indeed if you want to get your opinions heard, then all you have to do is just leave a comment on every single one of my videos. And if you want to get involved in all of my videos, then of course get subscribing right now so you never miss an upload, and of course ring the bell to get notified about every single video that I upload. So without any further ado, because this video is going to be long enough as it is, here is my top 36 from this year's Eurovision Song Contest after the show. Starting off at number 36, and it is... Honestly, Georgia, what a climb down. But let's face it, Georgia are having a little bit of an identity crisis personally at the moment, which is really starting to affect and hamper in terms of how its Eurovision songs are going to be selected in the future. And it really doesn't help when you decide to send a song all about basically freedom of... well, freedom, I guess. Which isn't really freedom of anything, it's more just freedom of your own ideals and dreams. And you mix in with a song that's practically just a complete mess of different time beats of like 5/4s or whatever it is at the beginning to then 6/8s at the end. And while there's no issues at all with Mariam's vocals, she's actually a very credible artist and she actually looked like she knew what she was doing, the staging did not do it justice here whatsoever. I mean, for crying out loud, you've gone from like this big heavy silvery flowing dress, which looks really uncomfortable by the way, to all of a sudden these black soldier-like dancers with these white surrender flags, I guess? So then all of a sudden come out with an outfit that looks like the Milkshake Man. Listen, I honestly hope Georgia for the best when it comes to the future of this contest, but this year you just completely missed the mark. But look, no disrespect to Mariam, she's an amazing artist and very credible singer, as I already mentioned, so let's face it, this was a nothing burger to begin with. Speaking of nothing burgers, it's time to go into my 35th place, and that is... As I already mentioned with many other countries beforehand, including that of yours truly, if your own country is not even going to back you for your own song, then chances are Europe aren't going to back it either. And that was the case with this particular song, Mila, for Serbia, because at the end of the day, it won its national final where it kind of really shouldn't have done. Much like one other country I will be talking about in a moment, it won its national final, but purely on the basis of being a sort of good middle ground between an agreement of jurors and televoters, because one particular song from the televoters creamed to the top of the top of the 12 points, if you like, whilst the jurors gave it nothing at all. This song just feels like it wants to go somewhere in terms of its passion, in terms of its drama, and in terms of its excitement for a pure power ballad, but that just doesn't feel the same here. Like Georgia and indeed the next country, it's a nothing burger of epic proportions, but if you ask me, this deserved to be very nearly at the bottom. I'm surprised it didn't come last or anything, but listen, they tried their best when it came to the staging, especially when Mila turned into a mop. Which is a shame really, because we know Serbia can send out some good songs in the future. It's just politically, like Georgia, they're in a bit of a mess at the moment. Hopefully that does all get sorted out in time for 2026, so fingers crossed for Serbia. But again, Mila, he can slay all he likes in regards to any other song out there. He's got the vocal prowess to do it, just not with this one. On to my 34th place, which I think will surprise some people, but I just never got behind this one to begin with, and that is... This is possibly the biggest snooze fest from this year's Eurovision Song Contest. Not a nothing burger, it's actually not a bad credible ballad or anything else like that. It just puts you to sleep. But again, I have to hark back to the national final because, like Serbia, Portugal had a national final whereby its absolute fan favourites, I Wanna Destroy You, got the maximum 12 points from the televote, but nothing from the jurors. And once again, this was a good compromise song, albeit a very tight one because it actually was joint top in terms of the overall points, but got the dub by getting more televote points. The only real excitement is to sort of towards the end, whereby sort of kind of relaxes you into a false sense of security, and actually is quite nice if you think about it. And also the introduction bit where it goes from nice and gentle to the first, well, verse I guess, where it goes... But like many people, I think we were so surprised that this even qualified for the grand final in the first place. But it did it on the back of consistency because it garnered points from everywhere else that you can think of, and it was fairly high points, which got it to just about be in the top 10 in the semi-final. So I guess it kind of... I won't say deserves to be in the final. You know what? I will say it. It kind of deserves to be in the final if it's going to get decent points like that. But... I just couldn't get behind it. Sorry. It's not something I'm going to regularly listen to after all. Maybe you guys like it, and of course there was a lot of Portuguese love for it. Understandable. Just not for me this year. On to my 33rd, and that belongs to... Yeah, I mean, this is kind of going to be forgettable, unfortunately, for Azerbaijan, because... I mean, like the previous countries that I've already mentioned, they're in a bit of an identity crisis at the moment. They really have only selected, a specific amount of people that kind of know the Eurovision Song Contest fairly well, and that they think that they're going to do well by sort of half doing a soft power movement by, trying to exploit it in a little way for the whole contest, but... they're not going about it the right way, that's for sure. For me, though, this isn't necessarily a bad song or indeed a nothing burger, because there are some good elements to it, such as the little national guitar thing in the near the end of the chorus towards, well, both choruses. But I think what put people off as far as the staging element is concerned is, well, that little circle thing, I don't know. Plus, the lead singer's vocals were... Yeah, they were a little bit high-pitched, that's not something you would actually associate in terms of mixing with the song, but I guess it kind of was, since at the end of the day, it was part of the studio cut. But yeah, this was going to be forgotten in a hurry, and after all, it finished last overall this year. Not just in its semi-final, overall. But yeah, another forgettable year as far as Azerbaijan is concerned. Moving on. My number 32 this year is... I mean, let's face it, Croatia were always going to have trouble this year on the back of the old Rim Tim Taggy Dim from last year, which came nearly so close to winning the whole entire thing last year. But I didn't realise they were going to have this much fall from grace, not even making it to the grand final and coming up with a song which I think the jurors on its national final thought was going to be similar to that of a Rim Tim Taggy Dim kind of style. it just really wasn't. For starters, you have the changes of tone in regards to the whole entire song, where it goes from ditzy, ditzy in the pre-chorus, and then wham bam, thank you ma'am, decided to be so aggressive it was actually just so in your face and kind of rolling your eyes a lot. In fact, it was so aggressive they decided to hire the same geezer who does Poland's VFXs, that's for sure. I must admit, I did like the elements on there because everything sort of matched in with the song in terms of the style of it all, with the little quirky instrumentations, especially in the chorus, so I quite liked it. But for some reason, it was just too aggressive for a lot of people, and unsurprisingly, this didn't get anywhere close to qualifying. There was, of course, also question marks in regards to Marco's vocal throughout the entirety of the Eurovision build-up, especially in the pre-parties, but thankfully he nailed it on the night when it counted, when it came to the semi-final. Just... yeah, this one was just a bit all over the place, if you ask me. Not a bad song or anything else like that, just... yeah, weird. Not much else to add other than just don't give this guy poison cake in future. But thankfully for the next one, it is an actual qualifier for the contest, although of course still relatively low on my list. At number 31, it is... Now, before we all start commenting, I am not surprised in the slightest that this did relatively well at the contest, coming 9th overall, which, weirdly, I predicted correctly. Hey! Well, that was mainly because the fans wanted this to be their entry, and after all, a lot of Ukrainians have been displaced everywhere in Europe. Diaspora is quite the thing at the moment. But lest we forget, as far as Ukraine's situation is concerned, it was forced diaspora. There's no, like, you know, malice against this or anything negative about it. I just feel really sorry for what Ukraine is going on at the moment. Again, Slava Ukraini. But a lot of people, including yours truly, just did not connect to the song in this way whatsoever compared to last time. While most of us forgive the 2022 result and indeed sort of get behind the reasons why they did fairly well in 2023 and especially well in 2024. My goodness me, what a tune. This year, I think for me at least, it just feels like their 9th place is just so not deserved, because at the end of the day, this just doesn't feel right to me in terms of like an actual coherent song. Okay, maybe I'm being a bit harsh when it comes to being undeserved. I mean, at the end of the day, they deserve to be in the final at least, but not 9th place. There is a reason why certain alt-rocks and indeed old-fashioned alt-rock songs don't really have its kind of place in modern day, not just Eurovision songs, but just modern music industry in general. I kind of remember the chorus part of it, but that's kind of really about it. I only remember the Bird of Prey bit. I don't really remember anything else other than, of course, maybe the glittering, you know, flowing light themes from the lady... from the female backing singers in question. Other than that, there was a lot of 60s style vibes, which doesn't really sort of mix in with the modern styling, especially with their outfits. It was nice, but cool, you know, whatever. There are no issues with the band in question. Ziffer Blatt, they are a competent band. They know what they're doing. They are, of course, very well singing, and they got some good backing vocalists for that one. After all, don't give the backing vocalist to the guitarist, that's for sure. Like I said, there are some nice moments with Ukraine this year, just very forgettable for the most part. But listen, I do hope you send something decent next year, because you know what? I wouldn't mind you guys winning again. On to the top 30 now, and in at number 30, for me at least, it is... Kiss, kiss, to go from hype train to absolutely flopping in the Eurovision Song Contest, that's Czechia for you. But if I'm honest with you, like, I kind of saw this coming a bit. To quote a famous meme regarding the title of this song, it's not a case of kiss kiss goodbye to the grand final, more like piss piss goodbye. Czechia every single year tends to have this sort of wave of optimism into thinking that potentially they could do well in a particular contest, only for them to sort of basically flatline towards the end. And even the times when they're not so more to the point, the fans are not so keen on Czechia, they all of a sudden actually qualify. Regarding this year though, I think it wasn't necessarily a bad song at all. It had some, again, really nice moments, some quality assurances in terms of the vocal, fairly decent vocal ability from Adonis. I think I pronounced that right now. And the pale white staging with obviously a little bit of black in between, especially on the microphone, was actually pretty cool. But if you ask me, the dance break in the middle of the bridge, Why is that needed? It just doesn't match the song in any way, shape or form because it goes from a sort of do 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 to all of a sudden boop beep burp beep burp beep burp beep burp. It also didn't help the fact that unfortunately poor Adonis decided to slightly fluff one of his lines leading up to the build up to the second chorus. If anything, the music video attached to this was way more effective comparing to the actual Eurovision Song Contest performance, if you ask me. So yeah, unfortunately for poor Czechia this year, it's just a case of kind of a little bit forgettable, but not a bad effort, if you ask me. Next up is a country which, in my honest opinion, leading up to the build-up of the whole entire competition, was definitely one of my favourites this year. But when it came to the actual live performance on the night, my god, it actually put me off. Talk about a climb down of epic proportions for this particular country at my number 29, which is... Yes, I know what you're all gonna say. It's definitely one of the better poppy songs this year. It did qualify for the final, more or less just about, and it definitely deserved its place there because it was so quirky and so different, and definitely one of the better pop songs in terms of its evolution type, shall we say. Unfortunately, that's about it when it comes to like actually remembering it in a good way, because at the end of the day, this is about serving cunt. Least you forget, this was originally called Cunt from this national final. Unfortunately, it had to get changed because the EBU were like, yeah, you can't really do that. Plus, the BBC decided to stick its 2 pence in for good measure as well. Whilst, of course, the core of the song itself, in terms of its messaging, in terms of, you know, serving, you know, feminism at the end of the day, plus Mirjana's amazing vocal ability was just second to none, one of the better vocals from the whole entire grand final. If you ask me, the main Achilles heel as to why I think I've dragged this down so much, down to my top 36 overall, is because of the balls at the end, and those legs. I mean, they had that sun thing at the to begin with those legs sticking out, plus all of them other legs sort of just doing that, like, everything about it was just so sexually off-putting, and it wasn't even just a case of like trying to appeal to the old feminism vibe of serving cunt. It was just so it was so cringe, actually, if you ask me. But again, no disrespect to Mirjana, because I'm sure she thought it was going to be appealing to some people. Unfortunately, she only got 8 points from the public. But you know what? Fair play to Malta actually qualifying for the final in the first place. But for me, the whole entire staging vibe from that song is just so off-putting, I don't kind of want to know it really much anymore. I'll still remember it fondly for, well, serving cunt, but it's a shame the whole entire word got banned, if you ask me. Back to the non-qualifiers, and at my number 28, it is... At least you can say this is one of the better Baltic ballads from this year, but even then it's still not that great. Nina Zizic obviously has the passion and the drama and the absolute prowessness of a fantastic female vocalist to really make the, you know, selling the song as best as she possibly could. But even then, bringing a duvet on stage in the form of a similar vibe of what they had in 2022 with the big blue sun thing, I don't think that's going to work necessarily for staging, if you ask me. Definitely not the blandest, it's not a nothing burger of any stretch of the imaginations. I just feel with Montenegro this year, they had the unfortunate part of basically their main winner coming from the national final actually being disqualified because their song was released before the deadline. As a result, she was shoved in the last minute because she came second place, so yeah, it is what it is. But I honestly hope Montenegro do return next year, despite the little setback. After all, they didn't actually end up last in their semi-final, despite starting second on the night, which is a little bit unfortunate. On to my 27th, fairly swiftly, because there's not much else to add. But at my number 27, it is... How much time do we have left together? We never know. This was another one of those that for a lot of people felt it was a bit of a DOA come the whole entire competition as soon as it was selected. Not necessarily a nothing burger, but a lot of people just weren't really taking to it, despite the theme of the song being actually really emotional and quite touching. But if you ask me, I think the lyrics and the whole entire package was just so blatant, it was almost thrown in your face with a load of vomit for good measure. How Much Time Do We Have Left basically talks about the Clement's tragic time of when his wife was suffering through cancer, which thankfully she survived, hence why we were able to see her on the stage for about the final 10 to 20 seconds of the song. It was a really touching moment on its semi-final semi-final performance. But other than that, the song itself, when building up to all of this, doesn't really feel that very connected. It's like they tried to sort of make it as simple as possible, but it kind of feels too simple, whereby it doesn't really go anywhere after 30 seconds. There was, of course, the whole upside down thing, but that just doesn't really make sense if you ask me. I mean, I get it after hearing it, but when you sort of see it for the first time, you're sort of going, huh? And I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but Clement is, of course, a competent performer, and he sold this song as best as he possibly could. And fair play to him and his wife for absolutely making it the song their own. And you know what? I'll give it a little clap for basic effort. But realistically speaking, it wasn't going to make it past the semi-finals, despite, you know, some people actually giving it the love that it kind of really does deserve. But for me, it's just not going to get anywhere further up until around about 27th place, because I just can't connect to it. Sorry. On to my number 26, and that goes to... Looking back on this is actually a pretty good pop song in its own right, in terms of the evolution style, and indeed, of course, the unique factor in the fact that you're going, shh. There was, of course, the epic selling point on the semi-final performance in the fact that it had scaffolding for the first time ever. And, of course, that famous, like, multiple-arm man, I've forgotten the terminology of what that is, sorry. But the ultimate burden came from Theo himself, because despite the fact that he tried to train himself so much in order to make sure he was competently vocally good, or, you know, decent, after so much training on the treadmill, etc., it just didn't come across very well, and on semi-final night, there were a few bum notes. Plus, if you think about it, the styling of the song, and indeed the vibe and message of the song, doesn't really match that with the staging, if you ask me. I just don't get the scaffolding. It looks cool on its surface, but it just didn't match the whole vibe of it. And when you have a mismatch like that, it's just not going to get the result that you think it's going to be more or less deserving. Because let's face it, only just missed out on the semi-final by 1 position, despite 2 countries giving it the maximum 12 points. It was a case of either you loved it, or you really didn't. Though the countries in question giving it the maximums was probably a little bit questionable if you ask me. But honestly, better luck to Cyprus next time, because they do deserve spots in the final in the future. On to my number 25 now, and it is one of the big 5, which goes to... I feel like Spain is in such a rot right now, whereby so many fans of the Spanish contingency every single year keep plugging away and almost propaganding in a way to many other Eurovision fans, thinking Spain could do well once again like they did in 2022. Unfortunately, when you send out songs which are very much to your own kind in terms of a Spanish flair, you're not going to get the results you desire, because every time you send out a quintessentially Spanish song, nobody's gonna vote for it. Case in point, 2023. My goodness me, Aya was so hyped to beyond heaven, it actually got top 5 in some pre-fan polls leading up to the whole entire competition, because it was so unique, so diverse, and so completely different to what Spain have sent in the past, that a lot of people thought it was going to do really well. But again, it was plugged by the Spanish fans who just hype things up for almost the sake of argument sometimes. This is no dig at the Spanish fans, but put it this way, I respect your delusion is all I'm going to say. Don't get me wrong, you rode on a wave of a fantastic slow-mo of 2022, and I still personally love that song like anybody's business. It deserved its top 3 finish, but put it this way, you can't seem to replicate that song again, can you? What you guys need from your national finals is a song that's going to be a mixture of great Spanish quintessential flair, but also is going to appeal to the wider European public, as was slow-mo the case in 2022. But that's simply not been the case over the last few years, and while of course Aya was so overhyped to top 5 finishes in the polls, only for it to end up last out of the televoters, I feel that maybe the last few years have been a little bit harsh on Spain. After all, I did quite like Zora in terms of his guilty pleasureness, but I knew it wasn't going to do that well. Bottom 5. And this year was just practically a copy of slow-mo, but just a little bit more flary. And unfortunately, I knew it wasn't going to do that well when it came to the public vote either, or indeed with the jurors. because I just couldn't connect to her in any way. I really do hope Spain comes out of this rot of basically sending songs which they think is going to appeal to the audience, but really only appeals to themselves. There is, of course, no disrespect going towards Melody because she performed the living jingleberries out of this. A fantastic Sylvie glitter outfit with great vocal prowess, especially in the bridge where she was holding the note, and how you had the helicopter meme at the end. But honestly, this was a pop song of evolutionary type that was almost DOA, but it's not a nothing burger, it's not a bad song, it's just not elevating enough. So despite having 1 year of success, I really do hope it comes out of this rot of actually trying to send in decent songs in the future. Go a little bit bold, it doesn't hurt, maybe listen to your juries a bit more. And maybe the same could be said for my number 24, which is... Like a party in the sky. I mean, this was borderline at best when it came to the actual prediction as to whether it was going to qualify for the final. But if you ask me, coming off the back of complete darkness and madcap staging of epic proportions, you then had this ditzy kind of boppy vibe of kind of a nice pop song, but sort of Emma Bunton kind of vibe with Emmy. And then the staging was just static. Literally static. All you had was just her on top of the actual thing itself, of this like weird rocket thing, just singing away, no movement, trying to keep her balance, and the other geezer, which actually is her brother by the way, just sort of doing this. Yes, there were some extra dancers, and of course the staging LED elements at the back were kind of fun, but honestly nothing more than that. And I do feel that maybe right now Ireland needs to move away from its traditional late show spot in terms of national finals, and it absolutely needs to be standalone. But hey, budget, innit? I'm not surprised in the slightest it didn't qualify, because at the end of the day Ireland have this little rut of sending not bad pop songs, but a bit bland. But still, it was excitable enough to get in my 24th, so I hope Ireland send in some decent songs in the future to qualify again. I'm just not holding my hopes up. On to another big five now for my 23rd place. And that goes to... Yes, I know. I know we're all going to say, why are you putting this so low on your list when it's clearly doing... Well, first of all, did really well in the competition itself. Consistency across the board of both the jurors and the televoters. And it's charting really, really well at the moment. And that's simply because of, I guess, my taste. If I would be in a setting of where I would simply enjoy the song of a late night, I don't know, stag do, or being with, I don't know, a girlfriend or something like that, and I just want to party the night away, absolutely, I'll listen to this all day and night. But that's about it. It only is supposed to be situated for late nights. I would never listen to this on a regular basis, despite the fact that, you know, it is quirky, it is so different, it's captivating, and you get to also smash a cello near the end. And hell, that ba la 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 is very hooky. It's extremely hooky. Earworm galore. But it's more or less a song that only just gets me in the mood when I really want to listen to it. It's not something I want to really constantly want to listen to on a daily basis. It's a me thing. Deal with it. If you don't like it, just let me know in the comments below. And maybe the same could be said for my number 22, which is... Well done, Denmark. Well done for finally qualifying for the final after 4 attempts in the previous years. And this very, very much deserves a place in the grand final. I'm not surprised it did poorly. Was it 2 points from Iceland? Oof. But the fact that they decided to go away from their traditional red elements in terms of the, well, basically red in the colour scheme of the country, she decided to go full on blue with her outfit, which actually looked pretty decent. All that being said, I did really enjoy Denmark this year because of its fantastic poppy vocals and poppy vibe, even though it's a bit of an evolution of Loreen, let's face it. And from one bit of evolution to another, and indeed we don't go too far away in terms of its location either. My number 21 is... Jedward 2.0, you've done yourselves proud. I mean, after all, this was a vibe of all epic proportions. This was, well, excitable, to say the least. You had everything silvery, you had two guys who are very young with very big sunglasses, basically singing a song that sounded very similar to Row, Row, Row Your Boat. And of course, harking back to their, well, pure love for Minecraft, there was a lot of Minecraft elements in there, not at least with the LED, and also a glaring octopus on your screen. It was fun, it was cool, but also kind of annoying at the same time, especially in the verses. But again, not a bad song, I just felt that maybe there was a touch of annoyance on there, which wasn't really going to be as elevating or as progressive, say, as the original Jedward, for example. But you know what, Vibe? You gave us a good laugh, and we all love you for it, so take care of yourselves, and we'll see you sometime in the future. On to my top 20 now, and in at number 20, it is... To say this is dark is a bit of an understatement. A lot about it was just sort of trying to grab you in to sort of say, oh, it's going to be scary, oh, you don't know what you're going to be feeling, oh, what are you going to do? Especially during that bridge part whereby the camera just slowly pans in towards the lead singer and it stares into your soul like it's about to gobble you up into... well, heaven or hell, one of the two. The LED element was also very nice in the form of it basically showing like a field of farm with, complete with a barn, just slowly getting sort of winded apart and chaos thrown all around it, especially towards the end with the Tavo, earworm, galore. This is how you do alt rock in my honest opinion, but obviously it's not one of the better ones out there, so I would say just about squeaking into my top 20 is a fair assumption. But that being said, it's Lithuania, diaspora, it was always gonna do well. It's also the first time this year, as far as actual finalists is concerned, that all of the Nordics and the Baltics qualified in the same year for the first time in a while, and only the fourth time in its history that has actually happened. Lithuania know how to do anything alternative or anything just mad, but also captivating at the same time. Congratulations, Lithuania. Congratulations. Now for my next one, at number 19, and while I did initially sort of kind of half praise it, I think this is only a fair placing as far as my own personal taste is concerned. And that is another one of the big five with... What the hell just happened? I think I was willing to probably give this one a little bit of a chance because at the end of the day, this was always going to be gobbled up by the jurors because at the end of the day, Remember Monday know how to sing. They are competent and they're absolutely lovely and arguably one of the best performers out of the whole entire Eurovision whole year, never mind in the grand final. They of course know each other backwards, are great BFFs for a long time. They were on The Voice for crying out loud, so obviously gained a bit of stardom there. Plus the staging was actually not too bad, if perhaps a little bit static with that big chandelier stuck in the middle, but they moved around the stage where they needed to and certainly knew how to move. So if you ask me, as far as the outfits is concerned, it was very much Powerpuff Girls. And with all that praise of the girls out of the way, I think we can finally say now, What the Hell Just Happened is a rubbish song. After all, it was co-written by the same people who did Embers in 2021 for the UK, and you know what happened there. 0 points. So yeah, I think it's fair to say that the BBC should not employ those two people ever again. Which, if I'm honest with you, is a huge disrespect towards Remember Monday because, as I say, they are competent performers, and I'm sure if they had some other decent half song, maybe even a ballad for that matter, I think we could have ended up top 10, bit like with the jurors. But I think it's fair to say the BBC do need to sort out their strategy for Eurovision in the future because just relying on the jurors alone every year, it's not going to get you anywhere, especially when you've got two back-to-back nul points from the public. I have, of course, my own rant in regards to the UK, but I will save that for another video in the new season. Next up, at number 18 for me is... This is actually a much better song than you realise, especially after the first initial listen, where you're sort of going, it's exciting, it's quite quirky, but not too extravagant. But when it came to the difference between its national final performance to the Eurovision stage, My goodness me, what a glow up. He really did sell the aggression very well, especially given the fact that he was topless, if perhaps a little bit dirty. But the whole vibe of it worked especially well, since when he did the bridge part, well, quite a bridge part obviously, it was all in Armenian. It was a solid song with solid composition and a solid singer, but let's face it, it wasn't really going to trouble the top positions per se, but it was, you know, just solid. And besides, a nice solid 20th place is all you need for ESC Games lookalike. Gonna move swiftly on as there's not much else to add, and to another big 5. And at my number 17 is... I was never really fully excited behind this one compared to the majority of the fan base, whereby for some reason this was hyped up, I think perhaps a little too much. Don't get me wrong, the lyrics of this are absolutely beautiful and are a great testament to, of course, family values, if you like, and of course a somber number to, of course, Luan's Ma in more ways than one. But the composition itself, in terms of the full instrumentation, I've always maintained has felt a little bit weak to me. But if you ask me, I think the main drawing point in terms of how, you know, maybe some people felt a bit off-putting by it, maybe not necessarily that off-putting, but just a little bit, was the amount of sad there was on this staging. Of course, a lot of us explained in the fact that it was to do with Sands of Time and how, you know, time does really fly at the end of the day. But it doesn't quite help when the sand is just sort of sitting there and sort of spraying down, and then right at the end it's just sort of spiraling out of control, and also in the bridge where it makes you look like you have explosive diarrhea. I'm not surprised this came top 5 or in 4th place with the jurors, but I'm not also surprised either that the public just weren't so keen on it this time around. Ironically, it got the same amount of points as Azara did in 2023, and she did the old that kind of thing. For me, it just didn't feel exciting this year, but it's definitely not a bad song, a nice solid ballad for a great sentimental value towards it. Next up, into number 15 is... Tutta l'Italia, tutta l'Italia, tutta l'Italia. Should this have come last in the grand final? Absolutely not. Should it have qualified? Absolutely. This 100,000,000% deserved qualification to the grand final, and I'm so glad it did, because at the end of the day, I get to do a little bit of jiving around, because it's a very nice solid dance track, or DJ track for that matter. But listen, am I surprised it came last in the grand final after all is said and done? Well, considering the fact that I predicted it to not qualify in the first place, no. At the end of the day, it's San Marino, it's a dance track, it was never going to do that well. But for me, it'll have a special place in my heart, because it's come from a singer-songwriter who did Blue Double D Double Die, and it's a pure love letter to Italy, which in my opinion I kind of regard as a bit of a second home now, or at least my second favourite country. I've never been to Italy, I do want to go, trust me. But yeah, staging wise was never that exciting, apart from Michelangelo looking a bit cross and angry with a bit of bubble gum. I know it's David, but Michelangelo made it. Just forgive me, please. Next up at number 14, it is... I just prefer this over some others, basically, because it's a nice composition, it's so mysterious, it's so enlightening, and you get 6 girls who just know how to perform very well with its fantastic harmonies that they do together. Probably almost on par to that of Remember Monday, let's face it. But also it felt like a sort of witch's coven, or like a spell they were casting, especially with those whacking great anime tales near the end of the song. My goodness me, they were tall. And I enjoyed their vibe so much throughout the competition, and I'm so glad the jurors recognise the great talent that Tau Tomatoes really are. Honestly, Latvia, come up with more mysterious songs, because you're going to do well with them in the future, no matter what, alright? Now for my number 14, which is... I must admit, this whole entire year, I never got on the bandwagon for this one, because I just never felt that good of a connection to it. And I probably will never get the hype behind round this one, but at the end of the day, it deserved the hype because it got a lot of points on the Televo, 179 of them to be precise. It's one I will never get, but that being said, that doesn't take away on how much of a good composition in terms of its great, captivating, and and localized instrumentation that it produces, and of course Skodra Electronic are of course great performers themselves, especially the ball geezer. To be fair though, when I do hear it every now and then, I always think so yeah, I understand the hype, I'm just not on board with it like the rest of you guys. I'm not on that little hype train for this one, but you know what, 8th place is definitely a solid result. Did he get screwed over by the jurors? No, stop with that please. But hey, he got a 12 from the French jury, that's not a bad thing, is it? On to my number 13, and that is... Say la 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 la, I'm so glad that this got the jury love that it deserved, because at the end of the day, when you take the, you know, the absolute raw cut of the whole entire staging with just the one camera shot, aside from say right to the end where it sort of used another camera shot just to sort of pan out a little bit, it wasn't that exciting, was it? But studio-wise, I still feel like I want to listen to this all day, and I just love a little bit of C'est la vie, has to be said. Claude performed this really well as well, but just not maybe as exciting as I thought it was going to be. But my goodness me, when there's a bit of an earworm, C'est la 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 vie, sweet c'est la 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 vie, you're gonna have a hit. But it's only good enough for my number 13, so that is about it. There's not really much else to add other than the fact that I like this one. It's in my number 13, enough said. And number 11, no, we're not quite at 11 yet. And number 12, it is... I am so glad that the jurors really appreciated the artwork that went into this in terms of pure drama, pure excitement, but also pure captivating, well, blackness in terms of the background. But it was simple, it was effective, and it got 3 sets of 12 points from the juries that night. So how on God's green earth did this get nothing from the public? On my memory, I think it got 11th place or 11th best result from the televoters of Portugal, so 1 position out from getting a point. But why not give this a point? This was nice, this was sweet, this was solid, this was just actually really cool. Zoe performed this really well as well. Like, what are you doing, televoters? And now Switzerland has the rather unfortunate and rather uninspiring record of being the biggest disparity between jurors and televoters in Eurovision history. Not points-wise though, that still goes to Michael Szpak of 2016 for Poland, but in terms of positioning, it's the biggest ever yet, second from the jurors, plumb last from the public. Honestly, I don't get that one. It's my number 12, so screw you all, honestly. And next up is my number 11, so just missing out on my top 10, it is... Nothing screams like a really solid, but very good song, it has to be said, with Claudia performing it absolutely beautifully, and she looks beautiful, by the way. But in terms of everything around it, this screamed 1944, did it not? It talked about a national genocide many years ago. You had her on a cliff, which is something that Ukraine had from 2023. You had a massive loads of fire. You had a massive tree in the background. You had very nationalized, of course, instrumentation in there, especially with the boom ka ka boom ka boom ka ka boom ka. Everything screamed about this in terms of 1944 from 2016 for Ukraine, which, lest we forget, did end up winning. So maybe we're at a time now where songs that are virtually similar to that of previous times do actually work. Maybe I'm wrong about the whole thing now, because I love this one ever since I first heard it, and it got consistent amount of points of both jurors and televoters alike. It deserved that 6th place finish if you ask me, but on my own opinion, I say it's just missing out on the top 10 on this occasion. But you know what? Well done, Greece. Well done all the same. Time to head into my top 10 now, and in at number 10, it is... I should stress there's probably a little bit of biasness towards this one, because at the end of the day, Justina did shout me out on social media. I know she's gonna like break it. She's just gonna do it numerous times. Like the amount of times she can just hold that note for as long as possible in a great tune as well, and dance about. Ah! Slay, love, slay! But regardless, this is an awesome song and a very choreographedly, brilliantly done piece of artistry as far as everything sort of Game of Thrones like, if it is all sorts of shenanigans going on there. You had her in a black outfit, you had her playing the violin, you had her in those big harnesses sort of flying in the sky while a dragon was appearing behind her. You had her running from one side to the stage to the other so she can do a choreo, and everything about it was just screaming pure artistry chaos. I'm not surprised in the slightest this was a bit too chaotic for the juries, if you ask me, but it did score some decent points, but unsurprisingly, a lot of votes from the public. I liked it since the beginning, and I'm not going to change my mind now, but I would say it's just enough from this year for my 1 point. La Pologne and point. On to my number 9, and it is... This for me should have done way much better because it is so quirky, but it's so like a big, huge nod towards one of their previous winners for many, many years ago in the form of Poupée d'essai de Pépéson. I think that's how you pronounce it. I do apologise. Poupée d'essai de Pépéson. That's the one. Put it this way, France Score would have been proud of this one because it's effectively a modern equivalent to that with, of course, great artistic direction in the form of the staging, which was cleverly done with that big dollhouse scene going straight through the keyhole, literally, and seeing Laura Thorne just in her little dolly guise, just, you know, doing her thing on the floor, I guess. She, of course, performed this very well, and it was so ditzy, it was so lovely to listen to, and a lot of it went its way in terms of, like, the staging element, with the sort of shaking of the dancers before the second chorus, and that beautiful outfit of silvery glitterness from the bridge onwards. This, for me, I think is a travesty that it ended up bottom 5 in the grand final. It deserved its place in the grand final, but I think it should have done so much better than that. It will forever be in one of my hearts and in my mind for many years to come. A little sort of underrated gem, if you ask me. La Luxembourg de point. On to my number 8, and in case you need a reminder, there are in fact 2 countries that are still yet to mention, that in fact did not qualify for the grand final this year. We're coming to one of them now, and that is... I can tell you want a taste of the milkshake. This, for me, I think is a bit of a travesty, but probably not a huge surprise that it only just skimmed missing out on the grand final in the first place. It was one of those whether you were sort of like going to really like it or not really like it, but then again, it garnered quite a few points from various different other countries, but it missed out on one other country, basically getting that little bit more. But I, for one, just really enjoy this quirky little... well, obviousness to certain bits of, well, coming, shall we say, in regards to that. But I love the little nod back towards the sort of like 60s to 70s advertisement whereby he's just promoting a great milkshake with, of course, a nice blender to an even bigger blender where he did a costume change first, and then one of his dancers did a costume change later on. He's probably not one of the best vocalists this year was Gojo, but he certainly livened up the whole entire experience with a lot of glitter, a lot of glam, and certainly a lot of lights to go along with it. It may not be everybody's cup of tea, but for me, it was enough to get my 3 points. Australie, 3 points. Up next at number 7, it is... I'll be my own lighter. Nothing can burn me now. You know what, I must admit, going into the whole entire competition, when I first saw this live on its national final in Melody Grand Prix, I was kind of impressed, but not that impressed, because at the end of the day, it's a pop song that is very, you know, of the modern era, but just evolutionized for a male vocal to be mixing in with it. Little did I know on how much this would grow on me. Seriously, this is actually really impressive in terms of like how everything about it feels very sort of evolutionized, as I mentioned, in terms of its pop guiseness, because it is quintessentially a typical pop song with a male vocal in it, that actually is really likeable. Bear in mind, Carl Alessandro is only 18 years of age at the time of the contest, so to sing like that and dance like that, what professionalism, it has to be said. And while, of course, unsurprisingly, this flopped with the jurors, because it's Norway, Norway, this deserved a good amount of 67 points from the public, 2 away from 69, so close. But ultimately, the fire and lighter part, especially with the hidden message regarding his mother who suffered from cancer 2 years ago, but thankfully is all okay. Fantastic, yay. It hid away the major charm in regards to how good the quality of this song really was. And actually, you know what? As I say, it's just grown on me like anybody's business. Enough for my 4 points. La Norvège, 4 points. On to my number 6 now, and it is the final country that I've yet to mention, who of course did not qualify for the final in travesty circumstances. Yeah, my number 6 is... robbery of the year, in my opinion. But that being said, I'm not alone in this. Everybody said that this should have been in the final because a lot of people put it highly in a lot of polls. It was 5th or 6th favourite to even win the entire competition, for crying out loud. And yet it barely got anywhere. In fact, it came 3rd or 2nd to last in the semi-final. How? For crying out loud, this was a watershed moment for Belgian pop in general. Especially when you're given the fact that it's a song very much that a lot of Belgians were rooting for because it dominated its national final. It's dancey, it's vibey, but it made a lot of sense in terms of the styling, and it got you on board throughout the entirety of the song, especially on national final night. But on Eurovision night, while of course it was beautifully done in terms of its stage work with the multiple red Sebastians, although that being said, one of the camera shots was a little bit questionable. The main reason why I think that this did not qualify is the sad, sorry state of the sound equipment and sound mixing from its producers. Seriously, that we could hear the song nice and clear, but as far as Red Sebastian is concerned, we could barely hear him. It is such a shame that it came to this, and that is one of the main reasons why I think this did not qualify for the final, because it's robbery in broad daylight, it has to be said. But listen, I hope this doesn't deter Belgium for next year, despite talks of them sort of really reconsidering their position in the competition. Honestly, I hope we see Belgium back next year because they really do deserve a place in the final, despite the absolute daylight robbery that they had. But in the end of at the end of the day, Belgium do get my 5 points. La Belgique, 5 points. And now it's time to deep into my top 5. Deep into my top 5. I hope that makes sense. But either way, at number 5, for me, it is... Oh, ye of little faith, Eurovision fans. I was the one that was thinking it was going to do really well, and I told you so. This, for me, is absolutely beautiful in terms of its craftsmanship, its artistry, and also its absolute passion and drive for a pure power ballad of Italian origin. Seriously, I don't know how the Italians do it, but they do. There were so many fans in the build-up to the contest that didn't think this was going to do well, but why would you think that? It's Italy! Their national final is known for producing great quality music year after year. It's proven to be so on the streaming services, and it's proven to be so once again when it comes to the jurors and televoters of the Eurovision Song Contest. It's kind of only appropriate that it's actually my number 5, and it's his overall number 5 if you think about it. After all, this is a song about anti-bullying to its core, and all it needed as far as the staging was concerned was a really long piano, a fellow person on a guitar, a big load of subwoofers, and to top it all off, we had the added element of live instrumentation for the first time since 1998 on the Eurovision stage, in the form of just a simple but beautifully done harmonica. I would say the main drive for it at the end of the song was definitely the major part of it in terms of absolutely gaining notoriety in amongst the jurors and the fans at the end of the day. Honestly, I do think shame on all the Eurovision fans for thinking this won't get anywhere or were being quiet about it. This was going to do well, period. L'Italie, 6 points. And if you think about it, the same could be said for also of that of my number 4, which is... Espresso macchiato, I think it has to be said, Tommy Cash got everything nailed on when it comes to getting the right elements for this song with the staging that he did, with the added elements of a stage invader literally out of nowhere when it came to Eurovision night. A lot of us had preconceptions, it has to be said, including yours truly, that maybe it wasn't as quirky as what some people were thinking out to be. It was going to do okay, maybe with the televoters, well, definitely very well with the televoters, but probably nowhere with the jurors. But I was wrong. In fact, plenty of people was wrong. It deservedly come 3rd overall. In fact, it was definitely a Marmite sort of song to begin with, but let's face it, he got the core base of those that loved it to really love it on Eurovision night. From the sort of glistening introduction of a coffee cup to the winner's cafe, good grief, to his silly little weird dance to the security men all around him, to of course the aforementioned stage invader, and it has to be said, he kept that quiet until the last second on semi-final night, didn't he? It therefore made the casual public viewing figures be literally in gasping awe of how great of a production this was. And I say that because while the song is maybe not the most quirky in my honest opinion, we'll save that for later of course, this was definitely one for the history books if it wasn't for a certain country literally taking everything in the televote. I mean, for crying out loud, it was only 1 point away from second place. You know what, fair play Tommy, you outshone every single Eurovision fan and made a name for yourself in Eurovision history for years to come. Les donner 7 points. Speaking of coming, it's now time for the top 3, and in my number 3, it is... Erika Wickman came to Eurovision, she came on the Eurovision stage, and she will become a Eurovision legend for sure. But yeah, all jokes aside, this was a very emphatically, beautifully done, and choreographically empowering female entitlement for many years to come on the Eurovision stage. It was just, oh, in awe of it, in awe. Never mind that the sentiment behind the sort of obvious connotations of sexuality to become a great legend has really epitomized on how much of a goddess Erika Wickman became with that particular staging. I think I'm going to try and stop all that jokes now, sorry. But honestly, how can you not love this song? It was just pure female entitlement and female empowerment. And my goodness me, everything about it in terms of the staging was just purely done to a fine tee. It may have been perhaps a little lackluster come national final night, but when it came to the Eurovision stage using everything copy-paste, we got it. I mean, the climax of the song, quite literally, was her just being on top of a microphone, and it came out of its backside with a load of fireworks. Erika owned that stage like she owned the whole entire Eurovision universe. God bless her for coming, and God bless her, she may even come again in the future, hopefully. Finlande, 8 points. But now it is time for my final top 2. I'm sure you know which particular 2 countries are left, but which one's my number 2 and which one is my number 1? Well, in my number 2, first of all, is... JJ, just take a bow. Honestly, you deserve every single bit of plaudits that come your way when it comes to being a legend for future years to come in terms of being a proper great winner. Although given the split screen at the end of it, it was more of a relief in the fact that Austria won, but definitely it was a deserving victory. This was after all written, or indeed co-written, by one half of the Taya and Selena duo from 2023 to practically create an operatic near masterpiece that, it has to be said, I think it surprised everyone, least of all myself, in the fact that it's done something which was kind of Nemo-ish from last year, but taken it to a whole new level and absolutely getting the juries on board to a T. It may not have won a televote once again, and it is another jury winner, but considering what happened this year, I don't think we're going to be complaining. Besides, the staging of this particular song made it its own. And not just JJ's amazing operatic vocals. I mean, he's Filipino, what do you expect? But everything from the black and white filter to the paper boat to the 4x3 frame, it was absolutely majestically, dramatically beautiful from start to finish. Especially those lighthouses right at the end, they were just captivating, and of course all the blowing and the drama and of course the aggression that he showed, especially that little grrr before it went into the old dubstep beat part, signified the ultimate message of the song in terms of its title, Wasted Love. After all, it is a heartbreak song. It was always going to do well as long as you put the pure drama of being heartbroken in it from start to finish. And you know what? I totally get it now. Beforehand, I was a bit sort of lukewarm with it, but it was definitely up there amongst my top 10 regardless. But hey, it deserves now to be my number 2 and a worthy winner for this year's competition. Thank goodness. But yes, you must know what my number 1 is by now. It's been my number 1 since the beginning, and that is... This will forever be my number one, no matter what anybody else says, even if perhaps the televoters didn't really give it as much love as I thought it would. But in order to understand how much of a love I have for this one, you have to hark back to the final of Melodifestivalen this year in March. You had, of course, Måns Zelmerlöw in one corner, fighting for another crack at the Eurovision glory once again, by first of all winning the Melodifestivalen Grand Prix again. And he did it with arguably one of the most cut and paste, typically safe sort of pop songs, which was obviously very elevating because he did make it elevating, I will admit. But everything about it felt so tired, so repetitive, and if anything, similar to what he sung back in 2015 when he won it. And then you had the public favourite, Kai with Barabarabastu, a song simply about sauna. It's in the title after all. It was very Scandinavian, it was very of their own thing, effectively it was the People's Champion. And despite after everything that we saw, the People's Champion shone through, and it shone through on the night of Melfest, and it shone through even more with improved staging. Obviously you have the sort of copy and paste stuff with the big sauna cutout thing with it being lifted up sort of midway through, but then again you had also these epic, you know, sceneries of LED trees, of the river, of the lake, if you like. It was really nice to see. But because it is a pure out and out party song, you had of course the big bluey fires galore everywhere in the bridge, to the glitzy glamour and beautifully wondrous party mode of laser lights, of epic lighting, and just pure bliss when it came to the key change. No matter if it's in Swedish or if it's a safe pop song, Sweden more or less know how to do it every single year. It may not have been the overall winner, but for me it will ever be my winner for Eurovision 2025. Kai, keep going strong because you guys really do have a great future. Honestly, it's kind of a shame really that all of the Nordic countries gave it points, like loads of points, jurors and televoters, and yet everywhere else kind of ignored it. Come on guys, it's simply about sauna. What's not to love? And that about does it for this particular video on my top 36 for this year's Eurovision Song Contest once the show has been done, which unfortunately it is for another year. But never mind what I think, please let me know what you think in the comments below. What is your top particular 36 or 37 if you want to include that particular country in it? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Otherwise, you know the drill by now. Subscribe for more of my Eurovision juicy goodness, smash the like button on this video for good measure, and of course ring the bell to get notified about my latest videos. There is one more video out soon in regards to my old branding, but new branding will be out soon for the season of 2026. I'll see you then. Bye bye everybody. Bye bye.